I've got some bad news for those quiet quitters who are watching this video because unfortunately there's a new trend, and this one's called quiet hiring. Hey everybody, it's Brian from Life After Layoff, and today I want to talk to you about the latest flavor of the month. And that's right, we couldn't get a week into the new year without a new labor trend. So in this video, I'm going to break down what exactly quiet hiring is and how you should approach it if you're an employee. But before we get too far into it, if you're interested in more career-related content just like this directly from a corporate recruiter, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You might also want to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content. Ironically, I just made a video about employment trends for 2023, and one of them was these employer tag phrases or these trends coming out of the market. And what's funny is that we're not even 2 weeks into the new year, and now there's this new trend that's emerging. It's this quiet hiring, and you may have seen a little bit of buzz about it. So of course, I pay attention to this stuff. I saw it pop up in my feed, started doing a little bit of research, and had some aha moments, and I want to share them with you in this video. As you recall, the quiet quitting phenomena is when people have scaled back their work to doing exactly what it is that they're hired to do and nothing more. And this is in response to people who don't want to necessarily practice the Great Resignation. There's been this whole dynamic in the marketplace. I'm not going to repeat it in this video. You can go and check my previous video for that. But the dynamic heading into 2023 is that unfortunately we're seeing an uptick in layoffs. We're seeing more companies announcing plans to reduce their workforce or put a hold on hiring activities. And that can directly impact you as the employee, because if you're practicing quiet quitting and you're scaling down on what it is that you're doing, right, wrong, or indifferent, your name probably would be more likely to be added to a list, to a spreadsheet somewhere. And if there's a layoff in your company, they're looking at output, and it's just unfortunate reality of it. So this quiet quitting phenomena over the last year is something that employees have kind of inevitably drifted toward because of a sense of burnout and a sense of not getting rewarded for the work that they've been putting in. The bad news is that quiet hiring is here to ruin the quiet quitters party. So let's define what quiet hiring is and where it came from. Adopted most prominently by Google, quiet hiring is the recruitment strategy of pinpointing so-called high flyers within an organization and rewarding them by default over other workers, whether it's bonuses, promotions, pay raises, or other challenging roles. In a quiet hiring world, employees who stand out by going above and beyond get more, typically good attention, if you can call it good by getting more work, but hopefully more money, more raises, more opportunities. So there's some research that suggests that high achievers can be up to 400 times more productive than the average employee. And unfortunately, one of the burdens of being too good at what you do is that you tend to get more work, and it's not always followed by pay raises or recognition. And that's where the quiet quitting camp came in and said, hey, we're tired of being pushed to the limit, not getting recognized for all our work, and being paid the same amount. And in an advantageous labor market for the employee, we can probably get away with pushing back on that. However, as the employment pendulum swings, and now it's swinging somewhat drastically in this other direction to the employer side, you might not have the same leverage to work with. And again, if your company is laying off and you've scaled back, they're going to look at overall productivity, because the numbers don't lie. And they're going to look at the folks who are adding the most value. And unfortunately, people who are quiet quitting, whether we like it or not, are probably going to be more likely to be added to a list. I'm not saying it's guaranteed that you're going to be added to a list, but more likely to be added to a list. Whereas the high achieving folks, the people who are going above and beyond, are probably going to be rewarded, if you could call it that, with this additional work. So those top performers are going to get more high visibility projects. They're going to get their name seen more in the organization. And in a time when companies are laying off, you probably do want your name to be seen more frequently, adding value in other places. Quiet hiring is essentially them getting more productivity out of somebody without physically hiring somebody new for that job. And that can be very frustrating for the person who's gone through the last 2 years of this employment cycle and have felt burned out and taken advantage of, because now it's like right back into it again. And the question is very seriously becoming, do you even have the ability to push back and say no if you value your job? So what do you do if you're somebody that is subjected to quiet hiring? How can you address this with your employer? Because nobody wants to feel like they're being taken advantage of. If your job is evolving and has morphed and is going to be permanently taking on more responsibility than you had originally signed up for, you do have a few options. The first thing that you should do is ask yourself, do I even want to do the kind of work that I'm being assigned? Because if it's not part of your long-term career goals, you may find yourself in a dead end or potentially moving further away from your target. And that could be a big problem, especially as we look at people who rely on steady jobs. Now, I will put an asterisk here and say having a steady job in a recessionary environment where there's a lot of companies laying off is a valuable thing, and you shouldn't take that lightly. However, if you're being put into a situation where you're doing the kind of work that you don't really want to be doing, you need to be very careful about pigeonholing yourself or rebranding yourself inadvertently, because again, it will make it harder for you to achieve your career goal once you do decide to leave the organization. And of course, we have to talk compensation, because there are people out there who are going to say, if I'm doing another job, then I need to get paid more for it. And I'll say this, if you're doing the same level of job, even though it might be in a different department or a slightly different function, it doesn't automatically mean that you'll get paid more. I think what you need to look at is your overall workload. If you've had a full plate of work to do and they gave you extra work, then I think it's a very reasonable thing to go in, sit down with your boss and say, hey, listen, if this is going to be a long-term thing, we need to talk compensation, because I'm not being compensated enough for all the work that has been placed on me. However, if the new job that you're being asked to do is at a higher level and you know it, arm yourself with that data and have a sit down with your boss and discuss what your compensation should realistically be long-term. That is a key differentiator, because if you're not busy enough and you only have maybe 30% of what your original workload is, and there's another department that has a similar job that only has 30% workload, and you put them two together, you're still only looking at a 60% workload, and you still would be underutilized. Now, I know that won't be very popular, but it is the reality of the situation. And another thing that you might consider doing is looking at, is there a promotional opportunity here? If you're doing different work and you're enriching your skills and you're adding more value to the company and you're doing great work because of it, you're a high performer and you're getting a lot more recognition, that's the perfect time to start approaching your boss in your one-on-ones to discuss promotional opportunities. Now, of course, be mindful of it, because you don't want to walk into your boss's office and demand a promotion and a raise when they're laying off other people in your department. But it could be a valid reason for you to pitch a promotional opportunity. And this is especially true if you have an opportunity to lead a team or lead a major project. And alternatively, if you're somebody that's not happy with the kind of work that you had been doing and you've been thinking about a career change anyway, you might be able to parlay this into an opportunity if you go in and strategically present the kind of work that you'd like to get involved with to your boss, and look at a horizontal career shift for yourself. Because the hardest part about making a career shift is getting that initial experience. It's like starting over entry level. But in a case where an employer is practicing quiet hiring, it might actually be an opportunity for you to pitch a project or additional responsibility that's more in line with what your career interests are. So don't let that one go to waste, because this could be a potentially golden opportunity for you. But at the end of the day, and even in an unstable economic climate, we still need to act like free agents and do what's best for our individual careers. So if you're being asked to do work that you're not resonating with and you no longer feel like you can do it, that's probably the warning sign that you need to start updating your resume and opening up your job search. But whatever you do, just be smart about it, because we could potentially be going into a pretty turbulent time over the next several months. So that's what quiet hiring is in a nutshell, and potentially some ways that you can take advantage of it, even if you're somebody that's being pulled kicking and screaming. So I'm curious, are you experiencing quiet hiring in your own organizations, and how has it impacted you? Leave a comment and share. And if you're somebody that needs to get out of a bad situation, that's actually something that I specialize in. I do have a website called alifeafterlayoff.com, and it's loaded with tips and tricks, all from an insider's perspective, on how to navigate a major corporation's hiring processes, ultimately to land at a dream offer. And I share my deepest and most intimate knowledge in the form of some training courses. The first one is called Resume Rocketfuel, which is designed to teach you how to write your own resume in a way that is going to give you the best chance of the recruiter contacting you. Once you get that first round interview, it's up to you to sell yourself throughout the rest of the hiring process. And that's where my interview training course, the Ultimate Job Seeker Bootcamp, comes in. And if you want to bypass the recruiter altogether, you probably want to make sure that your LinkedIn game is spot on. So check out my Unlocking LinkedIn course, which will teach you how to navigate LinkedIn from an employment perspective and how to make yourself the most desirable that you can on the platform that recruiters use the most. And as always, if you like this video, would appreciate a thumbs up. The algorithm really does appreciate that engagement, and it helps me continue bringing this content. I'm sure there'll be another tag phrase coming out next week that I'll be sharing with you. Until then, I'll see you on the next one.